Today's video we are going to look at division with decimals. So we're going to do some place value models with base 10 blocks with decimal division. And we are going to start out with the problem 2 8/10 divided by 2. So here's my 2 and here's 5, 6, 7, 8, 2 8/10. And I want to divide that up into two equal groups. So if I think about what that problem means, it means I'm taking everything I have, this is my dividend, I'm dividing it up into two equal groups, so 2 is my divisor, and how much is in one group is my quotient, or the answer to my problem. So if I think about making two equal groups with this, I want to start out by starting with my largest place value. I have 2 wholes. I can easily make two equal groups with that. This is one group, this is two groups. Then I'm going to take my 8/10 and I'm going to break it into equal groups. And I can easily do that by just sharing one at a time until I have two equal groups. Or I can say I already know 8 of anything divided by 2 is 4 of that same thing. So whether it's 8/10 divided by 2 is 4/10. 8/100 divided by 2 is 4/100. 8 pigs divided by 2 is 4 pigs. It's 8 divided by 2, and then the unit is tenths. So in this case, 8 divided by 2 is 4, and because they are tenths, this is 4/10. So my quotient would be 1 and 4/10. That would be my one equal group and the other equal group. And we're going to remember that just like multiplication, where we're talking about equal groups, we want to talk about the fact family. So this problem started out 2 8/10 divided by 2 equals one group of 1 and 4/10. If I think about the multiplication family, this would represent 1 and 4/10 times 2 equal groups equals a product of 2 8/10. Let's look at a different problem. Sometimes our kids are going to have to know how to shift or trade. So let's say I have 5/10 and I want to divide that by 2. Well, I can't look at this and easily make two equal groups. I could make two equal groups like that, but then I have this one left over, and I have to break it up into pieces to be able to equally share it between these two groups. This is 10/100ths, so I could trade it for 10/100ths and then equally share these. And I know that 10 of anything divided by 2 is 5 of that same thing. So 10/100ths divided by 2 is 5/100ths. So here's one equal group, and here's the other equal group. So I started with 5/10 or 50/100ths. I broke it into two equal groups, and each group has 25/100ths in it. Kids will relate that to money. If I have 50 cents or 50/100ths and I break it into two equal coins, what would I have? I would have 25 cents and the other person would have 25 cents. Let's next look at 65/100ths divided by 5, and I would talk with kids about what that means. So here's 60/100ths or 6/10, and I want 65/10. I want 65/10 divided into 5 equal groups. So I'm going to start by sharing what I have. I'm going to start by sharing the pieces that I have, and I can say this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal groups. But here I am with this one again, and I would ask kids, tell me what's another way to name this besides 1/10 that would make it easier to share in half. Because it's one of something, I'm going to have to break it into some pieces to be able to share it. So I'm going to trade this 1/10 for 10/100ths. And if you have kids who still don't recognize that that's 10/100ths, then you could take your 10 and line it up. I left one. Line it up so they see that these two things are equal. So I've traded this. Now I can easily say I have all of these hundredths that I still have to share. This is 5 hundredths, here's another 5 hundredths, here's another 5 hundredths. So I have 15 hundredths to share. And 15 divided by 5 is 3, no matter what the unit is. Or if I needed to, if I have a student that needs to see the equal sharing, I could do one at a time. I could share them out one at a time into my 5 equal groups. Or I could say, I know that 15 divided by 5 is 3 and the unit is hundredths. So I can see that in each group I have 13 hundredths. 1/10 and 3 hundredths is 13 hundredths. So I have 5 equal groups of 13 hundredths. So my problem was 65 hundredths divided by 5, and my quotient is 13 hundredths. The multiplication fact family that goes with that is 5 groups of 13 hundredths. My two factors are 5 and 13 hundredths. Gives me a product of 65 hundredths. Let's do one more. For this one, let's do 1, and we'll do 1 6/10. And we want to make 4 equal groups. So let's start with this. Can I easily break this one piece that's in my hand into 4 equal groups? I can't, but I could trade it for 10/10. 1 whole is equal to 10/10. So let's grab 10/10. We can prove it if we need to for our kids who are not understanding that relationship just yet. I can show them that these two things are equal. 10/10 is equal to 1 whole. So now I can break this up into 4 equal groups. And I would talk about efficiency. Yes, I could take 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for you. That's 1 in each of the 4 equal groups. Or I could say, how many tenths do I have? Well, I have 16 tenths here. 16 of anything divided by 4 is 4. And then I just name the unit. So I could say I need 4 in this group, 4 in this group, 4 in this group, and 4 in this group. So 16 tenths is what I started with, or 1 6/10, divided by 4, or divided into 4 equal groups, equals 4/10 in each group. The multiplication statement for that would be 4 groups of 4/10 in each group, or 4 times 4/10, equals a total, a product of 1 6/10, or 16 tenths. So a few things to remember with this. In 5th grade, we only divide by whole numbers, and our numbers, just like in multiplication where our products are limited to the hundredths place, in division, our quotients are limited to the hundredths place, so we cannot divide anything beyond the hundredths place. We can divide where the quotient has a hundredths place in it, but we cannot divide where the quotient has a thousandths place in it. And that's because our TEK requires us to be able to represent it with place value blocks. And we don't have a thousandths. We have wholes, we have tenths, we have hundredths. We could use these to represent thousandths, but when we're learning a brand new skill, these are the tools that we're going to use to represent, and our TEK limits us to the hundredths place. You would then tie this to the standard algorithm, but not until after they've built it several times. And while you're teaching multiplication with decimals, you are tying those two fact families together. Every time you look at a model or make a model, you're going to talk about multiplication and division fact families when you're talking about equal group models.